Welcome back into the Lads Talking Footy podcast. As always, myself, Sam, joined by Jordan Tana. Finals footy, mate. Welcome to the business end of the season. How's it going, man? You got your suit on, shades on, ready to rock and roll.
Well, you said it perfectly, bro. It is the business end of the season, and I mean business, man, because we are going to get these picks completely right going through the playoffs. I'm ready. Business time, baby. Let's go.
Before we get into all of that, a couple of questions come through as well. We do have to talk about the All Blacks, their loss against South Africa over the weekend. Obviously, 18-12, South Africa get the victory. It's now 4 wins in a row for them against us. We didn't even manage to score in that game. I think that's probably maybe the more deflating, well, I guess not the more deflating part of it. 18-12, it's just 12 points worth of penalty kicks for us. Struggle street for us at the moment, mate. It is tough watching as well. Again, in a game though where we struggle to close it out, and that's what we talked about last week as well. Just how do we close out these games? So I guess the fact that we are still in these contests, we're not getting blown out like the Wallabies by 60 odd points to get up against Argentina. We are in these fights. It's just closing them out for us. And I guess it's something that we've always had a luxury of. It's not to throw shade on DMAC at the moment, but, you know, when you go through the likes of All Blacks 10s and you talk about Andrew Murdens, Grant Fox, Dan Carter, Richie Mwanga, you've had Aaron Cruden in the mix there as well. We've just always had the luxury of just the next guy up, next guy coming through. And we're just in a point of kind of difference at the moment where we're not sure where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree because I'm going to say it, and you've brought it up perfectly with your analysis of the game. The All Blacks are no longer clutch, and that is something that we have rested on for a long period of time throughout our history as a rugby union team. Just key moments in this game, like the McKenzie missed kick, like you said, that Scott Barrett drop ball that led to a break for South Africa down the field. We're attacking the line, and we're in good position there. The Lomax yellow card, that was a little bit unnecessary. We're just these key moments we're not capitalizing on, and we're making mistakes, and that's what South Africa are doing super well at taking advantage of. And, you know, you did bring up a good point because we are in these fights, and once again, we definitely played well enough to win. I know we didn't score a try, but I believe we played well enough to win. We matched their physicality real well, especially on defense. Was another brutal test match. Cody Taylor, absolutely outstanding in that department. We attacked the breakdown effectively as well with Scott Barrett getting 3 turnovers. You know, the scrum struggled, but I thought our defensive lineout was really good, especially both the maul and contesting at the lineout. Tupou Vaya with like 2 to 3 steals himself. And we have been kind of critical of the pod innovation or lack thereof from the All Blacks. But I was watching this game, and off fast ball, we are very systematic and structured when we do get fast ball, and it still does look very good on attack, as opposed to South Africa, who maybe are trying to be a little bit more innovative on attack, but it is still very loose for them. And they are making a lot of mistakes. So we do look a lot better. But saying that, this reminded me completely of Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis, because we were real clean, we were real polished and structured, and they were a bit ugly and loose, but they have an unbreakable will. They were just absolutely had the culture and desire and passion to win this game. And they absolutely did, man, because in the last 20 minutes, their defense was absolutely outstanding. And hats off to them. They have got the culture in this team to win games, and they've definitely proved that in the series against us. But I will say this one thing. We've been critical of the All Blacks. We said they've played good, but they've lost these games. We're 0-2 against South Africa, and I never thought I'd be in a position to say this, but I'm actually emboldened by the All Blacks' performances going 0-2 against South Africa, because if you think about it, this is the number 1 team in the world. They are the world champions. And they are about 8 years deep into their current coaching regime with a lot of player retention through that time as well, whereas this is a new regime for us. So if it weren't for key moments, we could have gone 2-0 up. So as bad as it is to go get swept in South Africa, I honestly think we're in not too bad of a place.
Yeah, I like what you brought up right at the end there as well, in terms of, like, they've managed to recycle really well, and they've got the foundations there, and the system's just working really, really, really well for them. And they have the luxury of these players that will play abroad, but they're still eligible to play for South Africa as well, which is something that was highlighted for us in terms of Richie Mwanga as well before the All Blacks even kicked it off. Razor was very vocal in the media about trying to make those rules, twist them a little bit to see if we could get the likes of him, Brodie Retallick, these experienced players that are still, maybe not in their prime, the likes of Retallick and that, but still bring a lot to that All Blacks team and would help us close out moments like that. So I don't know, man. It's real interesting, and it's kind of, you're sort of waiting for that next guy up, or just that's why I'm not being like too critical as well on Razor at the moment, is because we're still not sure sort of what he hasn't got that squad that he wants yet. So it'll be interesting to see like when it starts to click, what we start to our brand of footy, what that starts to look like, and how we move forward. But man, it is pretty tough for us at the moment. But these things happen as well. You got to remember Fozzie when he first took over, Henry when he first took over as well. It's just we're trying to get our imprint on it, and yeah, I wouldn't go shooting too much because people were shooting shots at Fozzie saying bring in Razor now before it even happened, and Razor's here, so just bear with.
What is your take? There was an interesting discussion in the group chat. I don't know if you were in the chat for that, but the idea was floated to give Harry Plummer a chance at first five. Oh, yeah, was it you? Yeah. So let's elaborate on that. What are your thoughts on potentially moving to Harry Plummer just for a test?
I actually discussed it throughout the week. Friend of the show, David McGurktree, about Damian McKenzie, and just seeing whether they would actually name Plummer in this game up against South Africa or not. And I said to him, I think he will get named. I didn't think it would be up against South Africa. I didn't think it was the type of team to name him up against that for your first start in All Blacks jersey. It was kind of just send him out with the bomb squad out there. But I just feel like he's a little bit more of a general. He can kind of steer us around the ship, get us to the points of the field, and let the attack flow from there. Whereas I feel like as fantastic as Damien has been, and we just literally said a couple of weeks ago, he was starting to really sort of fall into that kind of conductor sort of role. But then when it doesn't go his way, he doesn't have that tactical nous just to be able to time, or not time manage, but game management in terms of the squad. Be able to put your team in key positions, know where to attack, know when to pull back the reins a little bit, and know when to actually go for it. And it's just sort of attack, and it's like live by the sword, die by the sword for him. And I think that's sort of what we've needed, because the attack is there and we've got the game plan. Obviously, you have the game plan that you want to trust in. So you just got to put yourself in those positions and just trust it and go forward. And that's why I think Plummer might be given the reins in this first test match up against the Wallabies. If not the first, probably the second test match. If maybe he might be in the discussion for the end of year tour as well. But it's, I don't know, the one thing that I pushed back on was I do get it, but why invest time in Harry when he's probably not going to be the future for us. This is sort of just, he's called in as like that injury replacement, that backup. It's not like we're bleeding him to come through with the experience. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of tough. I get it, but yeah.
Yeah, the difference for me is Damian McKenzie. I completely agree with all your points, 100%. The difference for me is, as a player in this position, it almost looks as if Damian McKenzie has an identity crisis. Like he doesn't know when to balance. He hasn't perfected balancing both the attack and the conducting of the show as is required of him. He is definitely more inclined to just be an attacking player and just have a go from anywhere. If he had it his way, I'm sure he probably would. But he is trying to be that conductor in an All Black system where it does require a bit of game control and a bit of game management, especially up against these really good teams. Whereas Harry Plummer, I do feel like he knows his identity. We've seen that with the Blues. He didn't really take the ball onto the line a whole lot. Like he was just a game conductor. He let his outsides do the work, let his forward pack do the work, and just steered them around the field to a Super Rugby victory. So that is the only reason why I would maybe give Harry Plummer just a look and see if he can take that form over through to the All Blacks and really conduct a game against some quality opposition. Unfortunately, we have Australia, and we saw what they did against Argentina, conceding 67. That's right, 67 points. So I don't know if they're going to be a real test, but just put him out there. Let's just see what he has to do. So I don't mind that take from you saying Harry Plummer deserves a shot.
Yeah, I actually disagree with you though in terms of the Wallabies, because it is always a test when we come up against them. For some reason, they seem to just always kind of that it's the history, the rivalry, there's so much between us all, and they do want to obviously take a scalp. And with us going 0-2 up against South Africa, we've seen us struggle against Argentina and against England. Now's sort of the time, and maybe they've sort of pulled the wool over our eyes and said Argentina just put them over our knee and spanked us for 67. We're not really a threat to you guys. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we go and what that squad will look like. Obviously, we take them on the 21st as well, so we will preview that next week.
And I completely agree with what you're saying. I'm going to contradict myself about Australia being an easy beat. We will smash them one of those 2 games.
Yeah.
But I guarantee we'll be in a shootout in the other one.
Yeah, I agree. I've got one question here for you, mate. Head coach of the Fijian Rugby League team has been quoted this week. The door is open for him if he wants to join, if he is interested. So this is in regards to a report suggesting that Jarryd Hayne may be on the comeback to a return in rugby league, International Rugby League. What do you make of the comments and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, firstly, I'm glad Jarryd Hayne's got his freedom and he's cleared his name of all that sort of stuff. And he is in a position now when he is getting talked about potentially making a return to rugby league. But we did see him like a few years ago with the Titans. He did look like a shell of himself. I'm not sure that he would be up to scratch now at 36, I believe, years old, which would be the oldest player in the NRL. I don't know if he'd be physically up to scratch to playing International Rugby League, because Fiji is still a pretty good team. Like they made, I believe, the quarterfinals of the World Cup and pushed us all the way. So they're a good team. And, you know, if he does have the ability to play it, yeah, I'm really happy to see it because I like Jarryd Hayne. And I think he's one of the most exceptional talents in his prime, but he is far, far from his prime. So I'm not super excited about it. Just for the name, I would like to see it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like, as people like put this and think like we're going to get Hayne playing running around out there. We're not going to see that if it does happen. But the idea of it, I really like. And the fact that someone has reached out there to him as well, he seems like he's in a really good space as well. And it's just like there was just this whole cloud where you felt like you just couldn't even talk about Hayne for quite a few years there because of just... And it still is to a degree. And I can't imagine the amount of shade and flack that he'll cop if he does play this. But on the rugby league standpoint as well, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see him out there representing, obviously, his Fijian heritage as well. And just the experience that he'd bring to a lot of those young boys too that probably right now idolise watching him. They would have all been sitting there watching him carving it up with the Hayne playing in the Origin Arena with the Parramatta Eels as well. So I would like to see it. And he was one of my favourite guys in the NRL growing up as well. So I would just love to see him obviously running around out there as well. But yeah, he is 36 years old. And he's been hitting it pretty hard from what I've seen with Roger Fabry as well. So it'd be interesting to see if he is actually moving there at the moment as well. But yeah, man, it'll be interesting come the end of year test series as well. I do hope we actually see it. We're going to move into accountability though before we get into the performances of the round, mate. So very, very grim week from me here, but do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, and it's a pretty good week for me. The picks were real good, going 7 from 8. Only the Spoon Bowl letting me down. You've gone 4 from 8, and we started off with a real good result for both of us. Storm absolutely dominating the Broncos, 50-12. Broncos ending their season with a bit of a whimper. Storm, head-to-head into Katoa, anytime try scorer, has hit for me.
Nice. And yeah, I've had Willie Warbrick points over and the Storm to win at $3.30. The Storm went over that total points line just on their own. Broncos, man, they've just, Mad Monday.
Yeah, real grim ending for them. Speaking of grim endings, the Tigers showing that they've got an absolute vice grip on that wooden spoon spot. It honestly reminds me of like a quote from Rudy Tomjanovich, who was the old Houston Rockets coach back in the mid-90s when they went back-to-back. He was like, never underestimate the heart of a champion. Well, I think we have overestimated the heart of a loser here with the Tigers because they've lost to the Eels 60-26. I've gone Tigers 1-12. Absolutely has not hit.
Yeah, and I've gone Tigers to win that into Lucky Galvin at $6.25. So I've gone down there, but I did end up picking them for the spoon. I didn't head for my bed, so I just rode it pretty on that. And one thing that doesn't probably get talked about enough is obviously throughout the last 3 years, the Panthers have three-peated the premiership. Throughout those 3 years, the Tigers have three-peated the spoon. What do you reckon's more impressive? Three-peating last spot? You got to remember, throughout that time, they went from last position, a team was added, and they went one lower than that as well. So they've gone from last to like -1 and then last again. So the Panthers have been riding the glory, mate, but the Tigers they've three-peated the spoon.
Yeah, I mean, they got to be looking down that record of St. George from like the 60s or something,
Yeah.
where they won 8 premierships in a row. Can the Tigers win 8 wooden spoons in a row? I would love to see it.
You'd almost want to root for it.
And then we gave an absolute bit of a whooping, but the Rabbitohs sort of came back to ruin my bet. Roosters beating the Rabbitohs 36-28. I've gone Roosters 13 plus, and some late Rabbitohs tries have made that miss.
Yeah, tough footy there. I've gone Dom Young into the Roosters to win there at $1.80. We get the push, but if you were riding it, Mark Nwanga Nita Wase looking like Israel Folau out there would have cashed that one for you nicely.
Very nice. And then, well, I can't complain too much about the last result because this one has spun the other way and come through for me in the last second. Raiders coming back from 20 points down to come back and beat the Dragons 26-24. Dragons proving why they are the most inconsistent team in the NRL, just having spurts in games where they're looking like a top 8 team and then the rest of the game looking like absolute easy beats. And actually, they did hit their most consistent form of the season because I believe that was their 3rd loss in a row.
Yeah.
So shout out the Dragons. But yeah, Raiders 1-12 has it for me.
Nice. Yeah, I've gone to Moko, who hasn't come through for me there, into either team 1-12 at $4.50. So we go down there. But man, Big Red as well. Last couple of games for them there. He's on the lookout for a contract. I think he come up in the clutch there. He might have got himself a deal there.
Yeah, he's looking good. The Big Red's got the big puku and he's sending through game-winning grubber kicks. Speaking of impressive performances, Cowboys absolute clinic they put on the Bulldogs, 44-6. I've gone Cowboys 1-12, but they've well and truly gone over that.
Yeah, and I've wet the bed here completely. I've gone Credit Preston Dogs win at $10, so we go down there.
And we go from a top 8 team giving a really impressive performance to a top 8 team giving a rather shaky performance, and that was the Panthers beating the Titans 18-12. I've gone Panthers 13 plus into Taruva anytime try scorer. Both have missed.
Yeah, and I've just gone Panthers 13 plus at $1.47, so we've gone down there.
And then Sharks looking very impressive against your Sea Eagles, 40-20. I've gone Sharks minus 4.5 to cover that line, and I've double staked it, which has come through. So impressive performance by the Sharks.
Yeah, tasty bet from you there. I've just gone Lockie Croker on the nose there. I was hoping he would have come through with the stats at $6.50, but he doesn't cross over.
And then finally, absolute arm wrestle of a game. The Knights clinching that final top 8 spot, beating the Dolphins 14-6. I have picked a close one. The Knights 1-12. I picked the right team, and they've come through for me.
Yeah, nice tip in there. I've gone Hammer into Ponga at $4.50, so we go down there, unfortunately. As for the repeat set bet, I had Storm, Panthers, and Dolphins to win, anchoring that one at $2.85, which goes down. And the 40-20, I had Penasini, Tomoko, and Tungo anytime try score. 14.48. We go down again. Minus 5.7 unit collect for me on the round there, which brings me down to 76.74 units on the season.
Still very, very healthy in the green. Unfortunately, I've missed my repeat set bets and my 40-20s as well. Repeat set, Roosters head-to-head and Panthers 13 plus. Just the Panthers letting me down by getting into a close arm wrestle. And then unfortunately, I've gone Knights versus Dolphins to have a successful drop goal. And the Knights were kind of in control of the game throughout the whole match. So that has missed as well. But I have got a unit collect of plus 4.15. So makes up for a bit of the loss last week.
Nice. Good tip in there, mate. Now we're going to move into the performances of the round. I'll kick us off, mate. Jerome Hughes. 3 tries, 2 try assists, 6 tackle breaks, 4 line break assists, and 151 run meters. If he does not win the Dally M, the system is an absolute joke. He killed it in this game, but on the season, we've had Harry Grant in and out, Pappenhausen in and out, Munster has barely played, the Storm are minor premiers, he's been the complete catalyst to all of this, and I've got a question for you. If he wins a Dally M and another comp this year, which it looks like he's got Dally M tied up, and it looks like heading into this that they've got the health on their side, and I'll touch some wood here, I don't want to put that juju on them, but they are front runners to win the comp. If he locks up a Dally M and another comp, is he one of the greatest Kiwi Rugby League players currently or ever?
Yeah, you'd have to put him into that conversation of ever because
I don't think it's talked
Dally
about
M,
enough, eh? He's got a comp under his belt.
Yeah, and I heard I believe it was either Andrew or Matty Johns. They threw it out there that they believe he is the best running half in the history of the NRL. I don't know the quote exactly, but it was something along those lines. So that is very high praise from a potential legend of the game. If it's Andrew Johns, I don't know how good Matty Johns was, but yeah, he is definitely in the conversation because Sean Johnson was robbed. He should have been a Dally M, but he never won the Dally M. And Stacey Jones, I think the award system kind of came in a bit later for him, so he didn't get the opportunity to win a Dally M, but never a Dally M himself and never a premiership winner himself. So that would be his main two competition. And whereas Jarryd Hughes probably has the accolades to clear them, I think with his team being the Storm and how stacked they are, he will have some critics out there that's saying, oh, you're just a byproduct of your team, like Stacey Jones and Sean Johnson had to do it with the Warriors. Well, I love the Warriors, but we haven't had Storm reputation in terms of teams. But I really think he should be in that conversation because he is an outstanding player and he definitely deserves a Dally M this year.
Yeah, I actually think he should be. I think because he is down here and he is playing for the Storm, it's not talked about enough because he's obviously not repping that Warriors jersey. He probably wouldn't have the same success obviously being there. He is in a fantastic system as well, but he has had to work for that too. Obviously, he's come through the ranks as a fullback. He's struggled. It's been well documented in how he's struggled to actually crack it in first grade before coming down here. But he plays like completely different to Cooper Cronk, and yet you talk about a Storm system and he's just doing it a completely different way as well. But I don't know, I've got this, in terms of the Dally M, I've just got this real funny feeling that Teddy might end up winning this because I know Hughes had a fantastic game over the weekend, but Teddy also killed it too in his game and probably picked up his 6 points in there. And I don't know, man, I would not be surprised if he does win it, and I don't want to like throw shade out there to Kiwi boys getting robbed out there, but man, it's tough.
Yeah, it would be the biggest Dally M robbery in only a year because it was a massive robbery last year as well. But yeah, Jarryd Hughes, he is well and truly deserving of it. I'm going to hope he does win it, and I'm going to touch wood that they do come through with the right result. But Jarryd Hughes also one of the worst try sellers in the history of the NRL because every time he gets up after scoring a try, he's kind of like looking at the ref like, oh, I don't know, and the ref like wanting to give it, but he's not selling it well at all. But I mean, when you're up by 50, I guess it doesn't really matter. So shout out Jarryd Hughes, you're a great player, but yeah, work on that try selling. In terms of my performance, I've gone with a guy you mentioned earlier, and that's Mark Nwanga Tinawasi. I hope I said that right. I've got it spelt here, and I've been kind of practicing it. So Mark, we'll call him for now. I could have gone a lot of different ways with my performance because Brighton Nakora also killed it. Kalen Ponga had a huge performance in a really clutch game. All of the Cowboys could have been up for recommendation based on their performance. But I'm also a union guy like you, and I like seeing when guys come across and they perform super well. And you didn't blow the doors off, but just the touches that he had made me think, oh, there's something special there because he was an aerial threat much to the likes of an Israel Folau and some of the touches he got in this game. The first try he did where he leapt way over Munro with the hands up in the air like a, you might have to correct me on my AFL terms, but is that a specky? Is that what that's called?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you, mate.
Yeah. Well, he did a really good catch over the head. And then, he had some other touches in the game where he was taking some high balls and he got a lot of airtime when going up for the ball. And then he did, do some work around the field as well for his NRL debut. 122 run meters, 3 tackle breaks, got an offload in there, so that's good for a union guy. And then 10 tackles, which is weirdly high for a winger. So obviously they targeted him and he didn't miss any. So shout out to Mark, and it was a really promising performance in your first game. Unfortunately, Dom Young's back, so he won't get a crack at it at finals footy. But I think they've got something there in the future with some of the aerial touches he showed in this game. Definitely a kick to the corner try threat.
Yeah, Mark, I like that one. And I agree with you 100%, man. He's going to be a real threat out there, and he's a big body as well. Like obviously we've seen him in the union stage as well. Obviously in the 7th circuit too at the Olympics. He's had an unreal, I think it was last 12 months that brought out. He's been to a Rugby World Cup, he's been to the Olympics, and now he's made his NRL debut. He's been a busy man, has Mark. But I don't know, man. He's going to kind of keep Dom Young on his toes next season because I know Dom Young, the try-scoring threat and capability there as well. But if Mark's showing that kind of glimpse as well, and he's got the defensive nous and a little bit, because Dom Young's got a few errors in his game as well, so it'll only be better out there. Iron sharpen iron for those wingers out there. And he's got a bright future, man, because I kind of thought we were going to see him maybe in the centre position. It is something that we might see, but he looked good on the wing, and it'll be interesting to see what they do. We're going to move into finals preview, mate. You got the suit, the tie, and the blazer on. It is business season, finals week 1. All of these odds are accurate as of Tuesday at 6 p.m. and we are kicking it off with the Panthers taking on the Roosters at Bluebet Stadium. The Panthers, they are $1.44 favourites. The Chooks are $2.80 underdogs and the line is at 7.5. Cleary, he has been named for the Panthers after missing 3 games with his shoulder injury. And for the Roosters, Dom Young and Tupou, they are back in. Terrell May and Nafahu White are also in on the bench for them. Now, 17 wins for the Panthers this year and 16 wins for the Roosters. At the venue, as you'd expect, Penrith, they have a 61% win rate, and the Chooks, they have a 41% win rate here. They've gone 9 from 22 at Bluebet Stadium. Penrith, they have won their last 10 games in a row against the Roosters. They have won their last 6 games against them in a row at Bluebet Stadium. The last time that the Roosters beat them here was in 2017. Now, I've got something for you as we go through all of these. The team that has finished second has a 75% win rate in week 1 of the finals, while the team that has finished third has a 25% win rate in week 1 of the finals. I would back the Riff, man. I think they'll get the job done here at home.
Yeah, and I'm glad the stats you've presented do support who I'm picking as well, because I am agreeing with you. I am going with the Panthers. They have won their last 2 matchups against the Roosters, and that includes this year's game, where they won 22-16. To be honest, both teams have looked fairly average lately, but the Panthers will at least be bolstered by Nathan Cleary, whereas the guys that are out from the Roosters have kind of led them to looking a little bit dodgy, especially in that Raiders game. And they won't be back in this. Sam Walker, Brandon Smith, Victor Radley, they will not be named in this game. So that is a slight notch in the cap for the Panthers. And the Panthers with Cleary this year in the lineup are 8-2. So he definitely is a difference maker for this Panthers team. Defense, it's weird to say at this point in the season about a Panthers team, but defense is a concern for both sides as they're both conceding over 20 points per game in their last 5. But even though the Roosters' attack looked a little better last week against the Rabbitohs with Sandon Smith in the halves as opposed to Manu, I trust the returning Cleary's connection with Isaiah Yeo, with Jerome Luai, a little bit more to give them that slight edge over the Roosters. So I think this might be a close game just based on the strength of the Roosters pack and some of their athlete players. But I am going to go Panthers 1-12 at Bluebet to keep that record at $3.10.
Nice. If Brandon Smith, Sam Walker, Victor Radley, they were all healthy, no injuries, and they were named in this, who would you tip?
Great question. So the attack would definitely be a lot more bolstered by the addition of Sam Walker.
Yeah.
Both defenses are pretty dodgy. If the line was where it is with a +7.5 for the Roosters, I doubt it would have been. But if it was big, I would probably be backing that Roosters underdog.
Funny,
but I probably would be just sticking with the Panthers head-to-head pick, just to be honest. Just because they've been here before so many years. Cleary's back in the lineup, 8-2 in the lineup. Great record against the Roosters in recent times. Probably still back the Panthers.
I would have tipped the Roosters. I would have tipped them for an upset. Yeah. I feel like they were really starting to hit some form. Sammy Walker was looking great. And over the last week as well, they would have built into this a little bit better, a little bit more convincing. And I would have liked them for the upset there. I mean, the Panthers have looked real rocky. Dylan Edwards is obviously carrying his injuries as well. Nathan Cleary, although came up clutch time and time again after he came back earlier on in the season, he is coming back and it is finals football as well. And I don't know, I feel like the Roosters, they would have felt like they wanted to get that one get over the hump, especially early on with that extra life as well. So I probably would have tipped them. For me though, my best bet, I'm taking Taruva. He scored a double the last time that they played each other. So that's where I'm going to go there. And then I'm going to go with height. And I agree with you. The Panthers' right edge looks absolutely shot. And I'm going to put in Daniel Tupou for me here as well. So I got Tupou, Taruva, and the Panthers to win at $7.25. We move into the Storm, taking on the Sharks at Amy Park. If you are a Storm fan, you're out there listening to it, I'll be there, man. I'll be getting amongst it. I've got the rotating jersey system is going, but I am looking forward to some finals footy at Amy Park. And apparently the atmosphere is absolutely wild as well. And there's no AFL on here over the weekend too, so all focus is going to be in on the NRL. But the Storm, they are $1.31 favourites. The Sharks, $3.52 underdogs, and the line's at 9.5. Pap is back for them, named in the number 1 jersey. Welsh returns for them as well, but Suarez suffered a hamstring injury, and he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, which sees Anderson moved into 18th man. I know it's not a joke or anything like that, but probably those Goosies might have strained that hammy a little bit because we talked about the over-unders for him, and you messaged me, he hit that in one run. It's absolutely wild. For the Sharks, though, Kafusi, he returns, which sees Royce Hunt move back to the bench. Tommy Hazelton is in doubt for this one after picking up a knee injury, which would be a huge blow for the Sharks because he has been absolutely fantastic. Now into the predictions for this. The Storm, they're obviously pretty dominant over the Sharks. They have won 29 of their 46 games against each other. At Melbourne, though, they have a 75% win rate at home. The Sharks, they have only won 3 of their 15 games here. Now, obviously, the Sharks won their most recent meeting at Amy Park, but that was a game that didn't feature Jerome Hughes, no Pap, there was no Nico, and there was no Trindle. So this game will look completely different. The Storm have won 6 of their last 8 games against the Sharks, and first place has a 75% win rate in week 1, while fourth has a 25% win rate, just like third place. I think Melbourne win this, mate. I honestly think they might even pull the Sharks' pants down in this one here. I think it could be a bit of an ugly one.
Now, I'll tell you what, before I saw the team list, I really, because I just saw the odds, I really wanted to take a Sharks line because they did win that matchup earlier this year, but you made perfect points about that match. It was a diluted team, and looking at this full-strength Storm team and the way they've been playing lately, it's a train that I don't want to get in front of. And then if you look to the result before last, it was at Amy Park as well, 54-10, and that had Hughes in the lineup. So I think that's a pretty telling fact about the Storm here. And the Sharks have been really impressive. They've actually been looking pretty good lately, averaging 33.8 points per game in attack over their last 5. But as good as they've looked, the Storm have looked even better, averaging 36 points per game in attack. And they are my pick to win this entire competition just based off the form that I've seen from them lately and the lineup they're putting out here. So I agree with you. I have to go with the Storm. The line's a bit iffy. It is quite big, but I just think they're just so much better than most of the other teams at this point in the comp. Willie Warbrick, he scored a hat-trick last week with a lot of action going down that preferred Hughes side against the Broncos. And if you look at a couple of the other weeks, Dallin did score a hat-trick down the Sharks' left side. And then 2 weeks ago, Fa'alolo scored on last week, Fa'alolo scored on debut against the Sharks, for the Seagulls. So I'm going to go Storm head-to-head into Warbrick, anytime try scorer. I'm going to double stake that, and it's $2.10.
I couldn't agree more with you, mate. Will Warbrick's he's been hitting some absolute form at the moment. So I've locked him in here for a first, second, or third try scorer, and the Storm to win 13 plus at $6. The Cowboys, they take on the Knights at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. The Cows, they are $1.42 favourites. The Knights are $2.88 underdogs, and the line is at 6.5. Feel like that line might shift, and the odds might shift a little bit after the stats that I've got for you here. For the Cowboys, McLean returns for them, which sees Sam McIntyre revert to the bench. The Knights, they are unchanged. They're 17 from last week as well. So they're pretty even. Only one game splits them in previous meetings throughout history. The Cowboys have won their last 3 games in a row against the Knights. And at Queensland Country Bank Stadium, they have won their last 5 games in a row against them. That's because the Knights have never won here. They are 0-5. 5th place has an 83% win rate in week 1, while 8th place has the worst with 17% win rate in week 1. Both teams come into this with 3-game win streaks, but the Cowboys, they look completely more convincing for me. The attack is on. It's really hot right now. There's so many threats all over the park. The defense, obviously, that's a little bit iffy, but when you're in a shootout, mate, if you can shoot more, you're going to fucking win. So I reckon the Cowboys, they take this one.
Yeah, and I'm going to be backing the Cowboys too because, like you said, they have won the last 2 meetings, both in Townsville, and both by really close margins. So we might come to that a bit later. But, yeah, both teams, I agree, hitting their best form at the right time of the season, going 4-1 in their last 5. But I agree as well about the Cowboys' attack because I trust it more in clear conditions in Townsville, which it's meant to be, and especially coming off such a clinical performance against the Bulldogs last week. I have to side with them here. and they averaged 38 points per game over that 5-game stretch as well. So they're looking red hot at the moment. Whereas the Knights did last week defend like really good against the Dolphins' attack that was putting their line under a bit of pressure. I thought Gagai and Best and the centers and just the edges in general did a really good job against the Dolphins. And they are probably the more consistent team on that side of the ball. But although the Cowboys do have their concerns like you laid out, they have shown in recent weeks that they can suffocate teams, holding the Bulldogs to 6 and the Raiders to 4 in a couple of their games recently. So I will side with the Cowboys to carry that recent form over into this game and another close one because we know these teams are pretty hard to separate in terms of their history. So I am going to go Cowboys 1-12 at $3.25.
Interesting. Cowboys, mate, they might be my favourite team to bet on all season. And one of the things, or one of the themes that I've been running with all year is the big three. I'm going with another one in finals games. It might be a little bit risky, but we're going in on it. So I'm going to go Kyle Fowl and Murray Taulagi. But instead of going with Drinkwater, I've got someone a little bit different. I've gone for the hot tour, spit on that little strawberry blonde thing. I got Tommy Dearden in there, mate, and the Cowboys at 13 plus. So that's Taulagi, Fowl, Dearden, and the Cows 13 plus at $15.75, and that is where my double stake is going this game. I feel like the Cowboys, they are here to play. It's dry up in Townsville. The Knights have never won up there. The stars are not, all aligning for me there, so I hope we can go out there with a big play. And capping it off, mate, the Dogs, they take on my Manly Sea Eagles at a core stadium. We've set this up perfectly, mate. Why go into finals red hot, man? Why get a home semi-final? You know, everything was stacked up against us. Go out there, play at Brookie, pack it all out. When you could go down to a core, take on the Dogs in a revenge game as of what we just pantsed them a couple of weeks ago. So very, very, very interesting. But the Dogs in this one, they are, it's split here. $1.92 for each of them. There are no favourites. The line is at 0.5 with Manly given the start on that one. So this is the complete pick-em for the Dogs. Josh Adokar, he stood down to allow his team to focus on the game without any distractions. Cherry returns for them as well as Burden, and Skelton will take Adokar's spot on the wing there, while Tath is named as 18th man. For Manly, Turbo is back. He'll have both shoulders numbed up to the brim. Don't know what he's going to be looking like walking out there. He might be just running with his arms down by his side because he can't even feel them. Kohler, he shifts to the centres, and Talau comes in on the wing for Faulalo, who reverts to 18th man. Manly go well here, mate. They have a 43% win rate and the Dogs 54%. Manly have won their most recent meeting against the Bulldogs. They have won 10 of their last 11 games against them as well. And at a core, they have won 3 of their last 4 games against them. 6th and 7th place though. Week 1 of finals, they both have a 50% win rate. This game's just a pick-em, and that's why I'm going, I guess, with my heart a little bit more on this one. But I do believe that they can get the job done through the middle there as well, like they did a couple of weeks ago. I think that is a weakness for the Dogs, and I think that's where they're going to front up with to begin with. But this one's a tough one, man. I feel like it could be anything. It could be a blowout score towards Manly. The Dogs could go and put 50 on them, like we saw them go and do a couple of weeks ago as well. I believe that was against the Roosters, I think it was, or up against the Broncos, at Suncorp.
Yeah.
It could be anything, man, or it could be just completely low scoring, 1 or 2 tries, but I'm going to lead towards Manly.
Yeah, and it's another game where I was really eyeing up the underdog. I know it's a pick 'em, but at the time I got my odds, it was plus 1.5 to the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was really eyeing them up as a good potential player here. But I looked at Trebojevic and I was like, you know what? I've always been tipping against Sammy Seagulls. It's kind of like a bit where I'm going against them. I'm going to hold hands with you this time because I think that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. I am going with the Seagulls. I think, they've won the last 2 meetings comfortably, and that most recent meetings 2 weeks ago, they really bullied the Bulldogs through the middle, and then that set them up to unleash their really good attack. And the Bulldogs don't look like they've addressed that problem as they showed against the Cowboys. And I think they're really missing the presence of Kurt Mann in the middle. He's not a huge body, but he's just someone that works real hard and tirelessly makes tackles, and he can stop some of that momentum that seem to be getting on the Bulldogs at the moment through the middle, because the Cowboys did the exact same thing as the Seagulls, really. They just really cut them up through the middle. And the Seagulls didn't look great last week, but they were never going to get the same ascendancy against a monster Cronulla pack. and without Turbo as well. And even saying that, the Bulldogs looked even worse than the Sea Eagles did last week. So the Bulldogs, I am going to fade here. I'm going to go with your Sea Eagles. Bird gang, fly birds fly. The Bulldogs did end up getting within 12 in the last meeting, and I expect them to be super fired up in front of them. I don't know if you've been seeing their crowds lately, but they've been packed out and really vocal. Real partisan crowds for the Bulldogs. So I expect them to be fired up and make this more of a contest than that meeting a few weeks ago. But I will ultimately give the edge to the Sea Eagles pack that will give them better opportunities to score. You may even see a Dally Cherry Evans 40-20, I think, in this game as well, because he loves doing those in big occasions. So I'm going to say a close game. I'm going to say Sea Eagles 1-12 at $3.10.
Yeah, it's going to be a shootout between the kickers. I mean, Burden, he's going to be the one that's going to get them out of trouble here. I think that's where they really struggled last week, is even though that pack is not big enough to dominate through the middle, Burden will still kick from 40, 30 out and land that thing on the 10 or 20 metre line and give them a good platform to go with. So he's the key to their game. There is a lot of Dogs fans out there that are looking quite salty at the moment. If this game doesn't go well, do not be salty on your season. They've been absolutely fantastic. We'll do a season review, obviously, once this is all wrapped up and talk about everything. But they've laid the foundations perfectly for everything. And they've been against all odds this season with the pack. They've played a completely different brand of footy, and they've done so well. They've been the fairy tale, story of the NRL season. And they were 2 wins away from cracking it in the top 4 and giving themselves an extra life as well. So they are right there on the brink of it. My best bet for this game, though, it's pretty tough to pick a try scorer here because I don't know what Dogs team is going to turn up. They've been great all year defensively. So I'm just going to go with a hot hand for Manly, and that's Lehigh Hopewade. And I'm going to take the Manly to win in that one, and that'll give you $3.25. And how about those Hopewades, man? It's almost like the Hopewade guarantee out there. You just know you're going to get a sure thing out of that.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up with the best bets before we move into the repeat sets. So for me, I've got Tupou Turuva and the Panthers to win at $7.25. Warbrick, first, second, or third try scorer into the Storm, 13 plus at $6. Taulangi Fout and that Hokto Strawberry Blonde thing, Cowboys 13 plus, $15.75, and rounding it out with Lehigh Hopewade into Manly to win at $3.25.
And I've got a lot of close games for my best bets. Panthers 1-12 at $3.10. Storm head-to-head into Warbrick anytime try scorer, double staked at $2.10. And then Cowboys 1-12 at $3.25, followed by Sea Eagles 1-12 at $3.10. So I'm expecting some close contests of footy this weekend.
Nice. Moving into the repeat sets, my lock of the week this week, mate. The stats hopefully won't lie in this one. I've just gone the Storm and the Cowboys both to win at $1.84.
Yeah, and I've backed you up with the stats as well. I'm going to go with the Storm, but I'm going to go with the Storm pretty comfortably. I know you alluded to maybe favouring them to win a bit of a pantsing.
Yeah.
I will throw it out there at an extended line, -6.5 at $1.68, just in case they get a good performance going at home.
Nice. Pants down. Storm will get the win there. 40-20 bet in this one. I'm just going a winger to score in every single game. So I've got Willie Warbrick. I think he's a really good shout there. Sunia Taruva, I like that edge for the Panthers there, and I feel like that's one that might unlock. Kyle Fout, and then rounding it off with Lehigh Hopewade at $10.52.
Ooh, very juicy. And for my 40-20 bet, I'm just going every one of my picks. I'm going Panthers head-to-head, Storm head-to-head, Cowboys head-to-head, and Sea Eagles head-to-head at $5.04.
I like it. I was going to do something similar to that as well, but I thought, fuck, I'll try and juice it up a little bit with some try scorers. Let's get down to business, man. Finals season is among us. We'll see you all next week.